Hello, everyone, and welcome to another CMS Wire webinar. My name is Michael Srapchak, and I'm here today to help answer any general or technical questions that you may have. But before we get started, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar, Helpful Tools and Tips for Integrating AI into Your Content Workflows. Here's today's timing breakdown. These numbers are just rough, so don't hold us to these. At any point during today's webinar, if you have a question, please do not hesitate to submit those using the Q&A tab that is on the right side of your screen. You can chat with your fellow attendees by clicking the public chat that is also on the right side of your screen. And then we have also made a few resources available to you that is on the Docs tab. Here's a little bit about us here at CMS Wire. We were founded in 2003 and cover the primary topics that you see here on this slide. You can read our great content and register for upcoming conferences, all by visiting www.cmswire.com. I want to thank today's sponsor, Acquia, for making today's webinar possible. Acquia empowers ambitious digital innovators to craft the most productive, frictionless digital experiences that make a difference to the customers, employee, and communities. We provide the world's leading open digital experience platform, DXB, built on open source Drupal as part of our commitment to shaping a digital future that is safe, accessible, and available to all. With Acquia DXB, you can unlock the potential of your customer data and content, accelerating time to market and increasing engagement, conversation, and revenue. You can learn more at www.acquia.com. Okay, it's time to introduce our speakers. Today, I'm joined by Jake Athey, the VP Go-to-Market and Sales, DAM and PIM at Acquia, and Matt Dichter, the Creative Director at JAKALA. And Jake, I will pass it over to you.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Michael. And hello, welcome everyone to our webinar here today. And great to be here. And thank you for joining us. We're thrilled to discuss here helpful tools and tips for integrating AI into your content workflows. And our aim for our webinar here today is going beyond the hype with AI and content to hopefully offer you some real practical perspectives. And so we're excited to dive into this topic. As Michael shared, I'm Jake Athey, VP of Go-to-Market and Sales for DAM and PIM at Acquia, and I have 20 years in the content business and a real passion for this topic of content and AI. I'm one of Acquia's resident DAM technology experts and had the opportunity to participate in the Rutgers inaugural DAM and AI program earlier this year, which is a real great source of inspiration for me to learn from other content pros like you. And so happy to be joined by Matthew, one of our partners. And Matthew, over to you to introduce yourself.
Great. Thank you, Jake. Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Dichter. I'm Creative Director for North America here at JAKALA. In that role, I oversee all our creative and experience design operations for all our North American business and clients. Really excited about sharing kind of our thoughts on the topic with you today. We've been working a lot with our clients and internal teams to understand how AI can best make our work more efficient and more effective.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Matthew. So here's a quick look at the topics that we'll cover here today, including understanding AI's value in your content workflows, followed by a look at some of the tools for automating your content workflows. And we'll wrap up with a section on operationalizing AI and managing change. And know that this webinar is recorded, as Michael shared. And we do expect to have some time for questions at the end. You may put your questions in the chat box anytime throughout the webinar, and we'll be sure to take some time to address them at the end. And if you'd like our slides, you can reach me direct at dam@acquia.com to request the slides. And I know that Matthew has published an article to LinkedIn, and there's more information about some of the ideas here today with JAKALA.com as well. All right, so we have a quick poll to kick things off. Just want to see, where are you at with your use of AI in content today? So yes or no, do you use AI in your content workflows today? Let's see what you have to say. All right, interesting to see. It's about it's about an even split. We're seeing about 40, about 50-50 actually. So really good to see. And thank you for your for your participation in this poll. All right. Well, assuming a 50-50 split of the audience for those of you who are and are not currently using AI in your content workflows, our goal is to leave you with some ideas and tips and inspiration and some knowledge of some of the tools that are out there and how on how you might begin to leverage AI and operationalize AI in your content workflows more. So real quick about us, real quick about Acquia. Acquia provides the universal platform for the world's greatest digital experiences. We serve thousands of customers with their digital experience needs with the Acquia DXP.
All right, and just really quickly about JAKALA, we are a data, AI, and experiences company that creates meaningful and lasting impact. We work with clients across a variety of sectors to help build up their new digital experience platforms and other media, data, and analytics services. All right, well, let's get into it, and let's do a little kind of level setting here today. What you're looking at in front of you is the Gartner Hype Cycle. It's a great framework for evaluating new technologies. You know, looking at this chart, if we think about like several technologies, cutting edge things that have come out over the last 30 years, you could probably start to understand where things may have fallen in this cycle, right? Like more recent things like VR, right? We're probably somewhere in that trough of disillusionment, although, you know, some people are coming up with some better practical applications for that. Autonomous vehicles, right? There was a promise that Uber was going to deliver that a long time ago, but now we're starting to see that emerge in markets like Los Angeles and Phoenix with things like Waymo and stuff like that. I, for one, was expecting flying cars by now, but, you know, I guess all those dreams are dashed for a little bit. But even things like streaming video, you know, was thought impossible for a long time when you were relying on like Winamp or Real Player or things like even social media. AI is at this point right now, obviously. But I want to start with a quick little story about something from my early youth, which was microwave ovens. So really quickly, you'll see in front of you on the screen here, and this is not like an AI thing. This book really exists, so I'm showing it to you on video for actual proof here. But essentially, in 1978, the Amana Touchmatic 2 radar range hit the market and found a place on the kitchen counter in our home. To the relief of my hardworking mom, the promise of a simpler, more convenient, modern approach to cooking meals was finally here. At the touch of a few buttons, an entire meal would be prepared in seconds. Hours of cooking time reduced to mere minutes through the modern miracle of microwave radiation. Along with this new technology came a wave of cooking classes and cookbooks that aim to help home cooks learn how to prepare their five-star meals for their families using nothing but their microwave ovens. You could prepare a whole fish, cook a ham, roast a stuffed turkey, steam vegetables, dehydrate fruits, boil pastas, bake a loaf of bread. There was nothing that this cutting-edge kitchen technology couldn't handle. Soon enough, we learned that while this was an invaluable time-saving tool for our kitchens, it wasn't going to replace our appliances, and it's not going to churn out like some 5-star Michelin meal. But it does some things incredibly well, right? Boiling water, reheating a meal, some leftovers, making popcorn, melting chocolate, heating up a frozen meal. All these things microwaves can do really well for us, and they're important tools that we can have. And in fact, we've gotten now an entire industry has flourished around this, right? Like 30, 40 years later, unlike the 70s, today there are aisles and aisles of food dedicated to microwave preparation, frozen food section, even the deli counter. World-renowned chefs are in the act, right? They're licensing their names to these products. But I guarantee you, nuking up a Gordon Ramsay's lasagna in microwave is never going to compare to the experience of eating a meal at one of his restaurants, right? So in the end, we have a bevy of choices, but they're all kind of meh at best, right? They may have the ingredients or nutrients or calorie counts that we want to satisfy our needs, but are they great? Today we understand that the microwave, it's just a tool, right? It effectively helps create efficiencies where things used to be a bit more time consuming. Now, I'm confident that most award-winning chefs have microwaves in their homes and in their professional kitchens, but having a microwave does not make me an award-winning chef. I could be the best microwave operator, button pusher in the world, but I would still probably lack all the other complementing techniques to put together like an exquisite meal. Let's kind of jump back to kind of where we are today. There's been a lot of hype and discussion over this recent holiday campaign for Coca-Cola. It's been the subject of a lot of passionate conversations over the last week throughout the ad creative community, marketing community, production community. And while it's true that this is an AI-generated ad, it's not like there's a Coca-Cola marketing executive who's like, over a keyboard typing in a series of prompts to produce this ad. This was produced by accomplished teams of video effects professionals who are simply eschewing one set of tools for another more efficient set of tools, right? So just like we are in a kitchen, it used to take 10 minutes to boil water on the stove, and now it takes 2 minutes to do it in the microwave. So these are the types we want to things we want to look at. Like, what are these boiling water kind of opportunities for us that we can use AI for? Now, let's look at how far we can take this, right? Because I remember, just 6 months, a year ago, you saw weird videos of people trying to eat spaghetti and stuff like that. But this is a powerful video, I think. So if we could cue the video here. All right. So again, that's a very highly complex animated experience. Again, that wasn't somebody just typing some prompts, make me a holiday Coca-Cola commercial into AI. This was a series of different AI tools that people were weaving together to ultimately produce this campaign. So again, just like those heady days of the 1970s cooking era and microwaves, we're kind of at that same inflection point with generative AI today, right? We got a lot of hype and promises around it, but we're still trying to kind of figure out, where we are. Instead of aisles and aisles of mediocre foods, kind of where we are today, we might want to prepare for pages and pages of kind of meh content coming out, stuff that checks the boxes for the nutrients and calorie counts that maybe marketers and consumers need, but it won't just be great by the fact that you typed in the right prompts and spit it out. So depending on who you actually talk to today, Gen AI is either at its peak or near its peak of inflated expectations. And while some people are probably still thinking that they could prompt their way to a complete content holiday feast in minutes, others recognize that Gen AI is going to be more of a complement to that greater set of tools that creatives ultimately need, and marketers need to execute concepts to tell their stories. So for us at JAKALA, we're getting a lot more and more comfortable with this new tool in our little creative studio and kitchen. We've found several, like I said, boiling water type uses for it, which we're going to discuss in a bit more detail today.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, Matt, for setting the table for us. And so now in at part one here, we want to dig in a little bit more. So again, our goal is to enrich your understanding of AI's value in your content workflows. And so let's start off by doing a little bit more to distinguish the reality versus the hype in AI today. And so what do you think, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. And so we hear a lot of hype out there around AI. One being that, sorry, got my slides off a little bit. All right, thank you. So just to bust some myths here that we hear every day. For example, this is the big one that a lot of people are concerned about. AI will fully replace human jobs in the near future. The hype is that claims that AI will lead to mass unemployment by automating nearly every job, right? But in the reality, AI automates certain tasks, but most still require a mix of technical, creative, emotional, and interpersonal skills that AI is just not going to replicate, at least definitely not today or anytime soon. In many cases, AI is best when it's augmenting human work rather than replacing it entirely. Again, back to that Coca-Cola commercial, you needed to be a video effects and animation professional to ultimately still produce something like that. General AI is just around the corner. There's a belief we're right on the verge of creating AI with human-like intelligence and reasoning. That's what AGI essentially is. The reality, though, is AGI is still a kind of distant goal. Current AI systems, even the very most advanced, kind of are either narrowly focused and they lack that generalization, adaptability, and creativity of human intelligence that exists, right? Like AI is great at recognizing and assembling things that are really based on patterns versus actually having some true cognitive ability to do that reasoning that you would expect. AI can solve any problem. We're pretty sure that that's not true. AI has been portrayed as a universal solution to all things and all societal challenges, from climate change to healthcare inequalities. But in the reality, AI is a tool that depends on quality data, context, and proper implementation. It can't address these systematic issues without complementary human efforts and policy changes. AI knows everything. People assume that AI is infallible and has access to all the knowledge in the world. But the reality is AI systems are only really as good as the data that they're trained on and the algorithms that they use. In fact, they can make mistakes, they can reflect and even compound biases, and they often fail in unpredictable ways. And also, is AI creativity comparable to human creativity? You're getting to see now AI-generated art, music, and writing that are all often said to surpass, in some cases, what a human can come up with. But in reality, AI is just kind of, again, recognizing patterns, right? So it can mimic styles, it can generate impressive outputs, but it kind of lacks that genuine inspiration or emotional context or intentionality. These are the things that need to be kind of prompted into systems or imbued by the actual creative person or storyteller to allow that tool to do its thing. Like I said, in JAKALA, I'm overseeing our kind of global creative and design teams for our North American clients. So in that role, we're using Gen AI, but we're using it in some low risk ways, right? We don't want to do anything that's either going to put our clients in jeopardy or our work in jeopardy. We're sensitive to a variety of policies, and understanding that anytime we interact with any of these systems, these language models, there's a risk that we're training these language models on maybe sensitive or proprietary data information. But how we are kind of using it today is helping with article content, copy editing, producing imagery and image editing, and even doing things like creating content and variations for things like preference testing as well. We think of AI in three key categories. We look at it through a lens of what we call generative AI, conversational AI, and predictive AI. So in terms of generative AI, that's really focused on creating new content. Conversation AI is really about interaction, and predictive AI really is all about more like forecasting. So Gen AI is probably the one that you're all most familiar about. That's like what ChatGPT is, or DALL-E, or Midjourney, and it's probably the one you guys are most familiar with experimenting with. We use that to create, edit, adjust, or improve content. We also think of it maybe just being for like writing or imagery, but you can use generative AI to even produce things like user interfaces as well. Conversational AI has some of that overlap with Gen AI, and some people kind of consider it a little flavor of it, but its job, again, the intent is to have actual conversations with human users. So we separate out here specifically because the use cases and challenges are specific to what happens in the course of conversations with users. And then finally, in terms of predictive AI, that's really used to forecast events based on historical data. So we're going to talk a little bit more about some ways your teams might use it and how to avoid injecting bias into the process at some point.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I think it's really great to understand those three categories of generative AI and 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 conversational AI and predictive AI. And as you think across those categories, what use cases might be best for you, how do you decide? And the best answer I can give is try it out and see if there's value there. But Gartner has put together this use case prism, which I think is a really great utility, offering a lens for how might you decide what to prioritize, what to push forward, what to actually try to operationalize with your business. And so when choosing your use cases for AI, Gartner shares this helpful use case prism to help in choosing the use cases based on two criteria: value and feasibility. And if it's high value and high feasibility, it's likely a good case for likely wins. Whereas if it's high value and low feasibility, that's a calculated risk. And if it's low value, high feasibility, you have some marginal gains, and that's what you might expect with some of your AI endeavors today. And if it's low value, low feasibility, then you might have to make some selective exceptions, but generally not going to provide you the value that you're looking for. And again, testing and evaluation is going to be really key here to find those likely wins. And we'll talk more about what that can entail more in just a bit. All right, over to you, Matt, to talk more about some of the practical applications for leveraging AI and content workflows. And I think you've got the first two.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. In terms of some practical applications here, we've kind of think about it in a couple ways. So in terms of creating content, generative AI is particularly useful when you have high volume content needs. Like, are you targeting communications to personalize an experience? Maybe you need simple content ideation to help you create new assets for your content strategies. For best results, your prompts should include information about your organization, your brand, your product, your preferred voice and tone, your target audiences. So in terms of creating content itself, we're using it for things like generating topics to write content about, perhaps to do some competitor analysis, perhaps to do some additional keyword research. We're also using it more specifically for the content creation piece. So taking those learnings and understanding and using it for text generation, like creating articles or blog posts or otherwise, using it to create that visual content, using it for things like video editing, email personalization, even speech to text voiceovers for things like accessibility. We're also using it not just to create that content, but to edit content or even create variations of content that we might need to better kind of meet like a voice and tone or an audience that we're trying to speak to. So we're using it for things like to check grammar and style. We're also doing it to make sure that we're whatever we are creating matches up with whatever style, tone, clarity is needed to make sure we're maintaining the voice of the brand, and also make sure that we're creating things at a readable level, right? This is great. For example, like if you have like complicated, complex information, you could enter that white paper, let's say, and say, hey, give me something more at like an 8th grade reading level for this type of information, right? So you can really kind of use it to help hone in on like how you want to have a voice of a particular piece of content. We're also using it for things like SEO optimization, translation and localization, using it to enhance images and videos like we would in like photographic retouching or video effects, and also like to repurpose content, to be able to repackage it to apply it like for a different program voice or channel or whatever it might be. And I'll leave it to Jake to talk more about the managing content.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matthew. Managing content is really where Acquia focuses and specializes with its content management, digital asset management, product content management for all forms of marketing and creative content. So some of the key capabilities here can include tagging and adding metadata, which is one of the most essential tasks and foundations in the world of digital assets and content management. Cataloging, recognizing faces and objects and be able to tag those accordingly, transcribing videos, reading and extracting text from static images and documents, translating videos, documents, and text to different languages, summarizing long-form content, and analyzing content use and making recommendations. Those are just some of the things upon us in the world of managing content, including in digital asset management and beyond. We'll talk more about this in just a bit. All right, a question for you, Matthew. Let's talk more about some of these real-world use cases in action. What are some of the real examples that you can think of and what you've seen based on some of the organizations you've worked with or observed?
Yeah, absolutely. So some things are relatively like kind of no-brainers for us at this point. How I was saying before about like it's almost like this kind of microwaved content, right? So the thing that I can think of that is like the most kind of like microwave type of content is something that I would say is like royalty stock photography or video, right? If I wanted honestly to produce like some kind of really authentic piece of photography or video or otherwise, I would probably go out and hire a production team to go ahead and capture that stuff. But if I am relying just on like stock photography and kind of whatever is out there in a random library, I might be far better off prompting my way to the results that I'm looking for than to go out and find it like on one of these stock photography services. So that's one place where it's been super powerful because again, I'm shaving off a lot of time, right? So for my designer to spend a few minutes entering a prompt to get that stock photo versus spending maybe a lot longer time, not just to acquire that photo, but then to go through perhaps licensing and approvals. Like, again, it's about saving time and creating some efficiencies. We're also using it to replace lorem ipsum and things like mockups and stuff like that. So for us, using realistic copy in the design work that we're doing is far more effective for client reviews and especially for usability tests that we're running on different prototypes that we're creating. So using generative text is a great placeholder and it helps provide greater context for anybody reviewing the designs than a lorem ipsum, let's say. Speaking of text, we're also using it to what I say create derivative text. So I don't necessarily love Gen AI to produce like a whole new article level or blog post piece of content without some level of like significant kind of input going in. However, I think it does an amazing job at taking that original piece of content and creating derivative assets or pieces that you need from that. So for example, loading in that article, blog post, or otherwise, and using ChatGPT to generate a teaser text, generate a preview or a preview image, generate some abstract text that you might need. Use it to help come up with headlines for the article or subject line variations, based on the article as that prompt. We're also using it as a way to create alt text for media. So uploading things like photography to these systems and having it create that descriptive text for you really helps with things like accessibility. We're also using it to rewrite content for specific audience, like I said. So taking a set of messagings or an article or otherwise, and then prompting your AI system with persona specific information so it can rewrite content for that persona. So those are some of the ways that we are using AI on the day-to-day level over here. And
yeah, thank you, Matt. That's really great.
Yeah, and I think all those things really, when it gets down to it, is really about using AI, but not so much in like this high stakes way, because we also have to recognize these challenges. Jake, you want to kind of go through these challenges here?
Yeah. Some of the challenges, recognizing that it's ideal for uses that need help, say brainstorming and perhaps seeking some breakthroughs, but it's not a substitute for the work. So AI tools know that they still struggle with some accuracy and bias and factually incorrect information. And so you must always have a human in the loop to review and verify what it produces. Also, content may not capture the appropriate tone or cultural sensitivity, so know that your application of the appropriate context matters here. And ensure that you are in compliance with your organization or institution's privacy and consent policies before using generative AI. Many of your organizations may have those or be working through the development of those today. You should have a seat at the table if you're in the field of content management or a leader of a content team. And Gen AI needs examples to produce good outputs. It's the quality of the data, the examples, the metadata that will help to inform good quality outputs. So be prepared to refine your prompts and give some good examples. Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that gives you a good foundational understanding of some of the value of AI within your content workflows. And now I want to talk a little bit more about some of the tools available at your fingertips, including some of the tools from Acquia for any Acquia customers that are here today. And so, Matt, we begin to get into some of the likely tools for automating some of those various aspects of content workflows. Tell us more.
Yeah, so there are tools across an array of different categories here. So we have marketing automation tools. Those are intended to help predict and measure behaviors based on identified patterns and data sets. We have we can use it for categorization, right? So automate tagging for enhanced accuracy for performance insights. Being able to manage your CDP, so being able to gain a holistic view of customers across platforms and channels. Being able to make SEO enhancements, so generate optimized content and metadata based on other content's performance as well. Like I said, personalization, so being able to identify individual or unique preferences to tailor individual experiences and content. And so again, that I think more specifically, that really gets to the one-to-one level personalization versus generalizing things for segments or cohorts or personas even. And then CRO, conversion rate optimization. So being able to automatically fine-tune content on the fly to transform casual browsing for customers themselves. A little more specifically, the kind of tools that we're talking about here on our end, on the creating content side, we're using what we call both kind of external tools and then tools that are like baked into the platforms that we're using already. In fact, we're getting more comfortable and liking like working with AI within platforms versus having to leave whatever environment that we might be working in to like do some AI work as well. So things like, Copilot built into Microsoft or Gemini built into Google. These have been like helpful because you don't have to go someplace else and then come back to it if those are the services you're familiar with. But we're also using things like ChatGPT, DALL-E, Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, all great for, image and video, as well as Runway, Sora, and Adobe's Firefly product as well. So that's all for kind of more the creating thing, but you'll see oftentimes the stuff that you're creating content with is also the tools that you can use to help kind of edit that content. So again, looking at things like Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, Firefly, and even Canva. Jake, you want to cover the managing content?
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get into that, our platforms have integrated with some of these tools for creating and editing content, and we see that as a key aspect of integrating AI into your content workflows is to integrate some of those tools. I personally have tried and seen in action some of the tools from Canva and others, and some of the tools for managing content that we have in our platform that I can validate are worthy of consideration. Are ChatGPT, of course, for some of the same use cases we've described, and other tools from OpenAI, Amazon Recognition, Clarify for auto tagging, and a tool that I recently became familiar with is MediaViz.ai, and a shout out to them. I saw their tool in action at the recent Digital Media Licensing Association conference, which is a great tool for photographers to curate and learn your preferences for curating thousands of photos in a level of immediacy that you just can't do manually. So those are a couple of tools for managing high volumes of content and supporting your content management practices in the world of DAM and content management. I'm sure there are others that you've seen or had some experience with, and we'd love to hear about them as well.
Right. So let's talk about conversational AI. The goals of conversational AI is to behave like a human in back and forth interaction with users. They use natural language processes and machine learning to accomplish this. Tools are getting better all the time, and with correct usage, they can offer some pretty significant benefits. Among the best uses of AI are eliminating grunt work on our team, so we can respond or root basic questions. So has the potential to kind of really free up staff. And because conversational AI learns, they can improve the responses and the user engagement over time. So again, when we're thinking about conversational AI, we want to think about how it can perhaps reduce staff costs and wasted time, improve user experience and engagement, and then be able to allow you to scale up, right? As you free up more time to do things, you can do more with less and have more time to do the other things that you want to focus on as well. So in terms of the things that conversational AI is really good at, we found that it's really good at like enhancing or serving as an alternative to traditional search. So instead of users kind of not maybe finding what they find on the navigation or on the page, going to that search bar and asking a question, getting a list of results, we're finding that a lot of people are starting to jump over to the chat as the next way to kind of find information. And again, because in a conversational AI chatbot, it doesn't have to be like you would think of like or consider like a traditional style chatbot, meaning it doesn't even have to be text. You can deliver UI and interfaces in these chatbots. So in fact, it doesn't even have to be like just answering a straight question, but it can be answer a question. Here's some links to some content that might be more appropriate. So again, summarizing and directing users to site-wide resources and making those links available, having FAQ responses, just being able to provide related information, helping reduce language barriers for people, and being able to handle just that greater complexity than you might find on traditional decision tree chatbots, where there's only usually one or two correct answers before they have to throw you to customer service. So, there are still some limitations. So don't get me wrong here. It's designed to be good at talking like a human, but providing correct information, might be a secondary focus. So we really got to be careful of the information going in to these chatbots, because like all data, it's a garbage in, garbage out type of situation. So this is conversational as AI is something that we recommend is constantly something that is maintained and curated over time and nurtured by your team to make sure that it is constantly providing the most accurate information as possible.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And coming from the world of DAM, for any of our Acquia customers or those that are looking at tools and solutions from Acquia for content and digital asset management, this has been a key area of focus for us this year and for some time. And so I'm coming from the world of DAM and the work with creative workflows and rich media assets and various content types. And this is a real key focus area for Acquia with several helpful tools for automating some content workflows, the content and creative lifecycle, as you see here, as we look at how to create, manage, distribute, analyze, and repeat the cycle there. So for example, in support of creative workflows, we have an AI assistant to serve as a creative sounding board, as we describe it, where you can get help from AI editing and trimming copy for, say, documents, could be ads or brochures, or changing the tone of voice of a copy block, or even generating design ideas within the creative review process. And then we're also helping customers leverage the power of generative AI more natively to democratize the use of professional quality videos. And that is to create, edit, translate, and generate new video content assets by reusing existing content assets and templates. And of course, given the volume and velocity of content libraries today, with hundreds of thousands or millions of assets that are being managed, smart optimization capabilities allow content consumers and content managers to enable the ability to find and use content assets faster with support from AI. And this can include applying keywords and tags, generating asset alt text, descriptions and captions, extracting text from static images and documents, and translating metadata to different languages for different users, perhaps filtering and searching by color if that is important to the way you work, recognizing faces and objects, transcribing videos, and identifying duplicate assets, to name a few of the capabilities to allow for a smarter way to manage and optimize content use. And like many other SaaS platforms on the market today, Acquia too has an AI co-pilot that we are bringing forward to help users find content assets using natural language queries, also to help summarize some long-form content, understand what it is, and analyze content assets for more optimal reuse. So that's a look at some of the capabilities for Acquia's customers who are looking at Acquia DAM and content management solutions, and how we think about the contribution we can make to help streamline some of your workflows. All right. Now, well, that's the tool, and AI is cool. It's all the buzz, and you want to get your hands on it. We always like to ensure that we're aligning the technological capabilities of AI to your businesses or your organization's desired outcomes, which may include any of these things and more. And this can include, say, creating content faster to help your teams automate high volume, manually intensive tasks like, say, tagging files for easy reuse or translating metadata or writing search optimized alt text and descriptions, much like Matthew described. These are some of the functions that AI can do well and supplement the way you work and streamline your workflows. Also, it can help you use assets more wisely, including being able to flag any AI-generated content and prominently display your brand standards on AI content usage alongside your your workflows of finding and reusing content assets, and leveraging the flexible governance controls and workflows that come with more sophisticated DAM and content management tools to ensure brand safety and compliance. And the goal should also be to help increase your return on content investments or content ROI, to create from scratch less, repurpose and reuse and recycle content more, and help your teams find the existing design and branding elements and creative assets with the AI-assisted search by subject and visual similarities. And that can help you really get more return on your content investments. Now, if we were to look at how to integrate AI into your creative and content workflows today, I always like to encourage customers to map out your workflows as they are today, including the key tools and the functions and the processes that bring it all together so that you can use more of what you have today, identify some opportunities to streamline, to integrate, to minimize redundancy, and better connect your content workflows. And then add AI to augment some of those workflows and functions with the tools that you're using here today. It's like gaining a superpower, is the way I like to say it, because in many cases, you're not necessarily adding or changing your workflows too drastically, but you're able to leverage AI in more meaningful ways to pick up some efficiencies that can really add up when dealing with the volume and velocity and variety of content demands that content pros and marketers and creatives like you are dealing with today. And so it can be a really valuable exercise to get your team in a room, map out your workflows with the systems that you have today, and identify the tools and functions that you have, see what AI capabilities those tools can offer, and what additional AI capabilities you can apply with the plethora of tools that are out there and what your organization will endorse. So I'd love to hear more about how any of you are approaching integrating AI into your content and creative workflows, as about 50% of you are currently using AI or at least dabbling. So feel free to share those ideas in the chat box with us as well. All right, well, this brings us to part 3, and with about 15 minutes left, we want to talk about operationalizing AI and managing change and more. And with that, as you think about it, why AI, think about the if you'll choose to use AI and what tools, how, why, and what you need to consider in operationalizing AI and managing change. It may be helpful to do a bit of a SWOT analysis exercise, or at least map out the pros and cons. So why do you use AI? What are the strengths? What are the opportunities? Why not AI? What are the weaknesses, the threats? So in addition to that use case prism, map out some of these pros and cons, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And 2 of the cons and threats that your organization needs to be mindful of, and likely already is at some point in your organization, and you should have a seat at the table, is the data privacy concerns and the intellectual property concerns with the rise of AI. And your organization may be very well off here and have been forming your AI acceptable use policies and more. And you definitely need to be part of that when considering how to operationalize AI in your content workflows. And I know, Matt, you've prepared a really helpful decision tree that you share with clients on how you advise implementing AI responsibly. Walk us through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jake. So, Ultimately, the output quality can be unpredictable. So you really want to make sure you are having some sort of human verification available and ready to make adjustments to whatever that output might be. Ultimately, treat Gen AI like it is. It's young, right? It's immature. So you need to treat it like an assistant whose work you might need to kind of check in on, right? Don't just let it get out there in the wild without giving it a review. Oftentimes it's important to ask for multiple options for responses that you can use as a starting point. Like try to kind of either ask for options or set some constraints or requirements ahead of time before it's getting kind of way too open-ended. And use information that you can verify or know to be true to get started, right? I've talked to some people who work at other businesses working on things like email campaigns and otherwise, and seeing AI generate product claims that were untrue, or seeing AI generate like deals or discounts that legal would not buy into, obviously are challenges. So you definitely want to make sure that this is information that can be ultimately verified, know to be true, or at least you have processes to kind of pass it through the right review in your own organizations. So getting back to this decision tree, the first question you have to ask yourself is, does it really matter if the output is true? It's kind of a weird question to ask, but honestly, there are some things where it doesn't have to be 1,000% accurate, right? So for example, planning research, like trying to think about, what are the types of questions I might want to ask, or just basic ideation and brainstorming, or even for things like placeholder content. Remember I was saying before, using that instead of like lorem ipsum, for example, or some FPO image that doesn't make sense in a design. So things like placeholder content, it doesn't have to be true. It just has to be close enough. But again, if you're dealing with things that absolutely have to be accurate, you need to first kind of ask yourself, well, do you have the expertise and or time to verify, the accuracy of whatever's being output? Well, if that's a no, it's probably unsafe to use Gen AI at that point. If it's a yes, then you need to understand, well, are you willing and able to take the full responsibilities for whatever happens, whatever inaccuracies might be going on? You can't just say, well, it's the robot's fault. Quick little side note, I don't know if you remember, there was a story about a year ago, and there was an attorney who used like a chat GPT to write up his argument, and he submitted it as a brief. And chat GPT wrote up a great brief that included all sorts of case law that didn't exist. And I believe the guy was either disbarred or recommended for a disbarment. So again, you need to be willing to take on those responsibilities. And then if you are, then yeah, it's definitely possible to use generative AI, but definitely verify, right? You got to make sure every word output, everything there is, accurate and makes sense. Because ultimately, this does come down to perhaps an organization or a brand and the voice and the information they're putting out there. And you've spent a lot of time building trust with your users and customers. And it takes, months, years to build that trust with these people, but it only takes like one bad interaction, one piece of misinformation or otherwise to completely destroy that trust. So that's also why it's so critical to implement this stuff responsibly, because it's also about, how you're managing that relationship with your client in the end. So as I was saying, human judgment is critical in this process, right? You want to be able to catch these, what they're calling hallucinations, essentially where AI makes false assertions with great confidence. As long as the AI output is subjected to human review, hallucinations won't damage your results, but you got to carefully watch out for them. So while it's mostly great that AI is a talented copywriter and can produce well-written and convincing text, its aptitude for good writing will fool inexperienced users into believing that its expertise generalizes to everything else. So bad advice, for example, will appear to be the product of a carefully considered analysis as opposed to some hallucination, right? So again, back to that example, oh, well, it looks like it's cited a trusted source when in fact that trusted source might not even exist. So just really got to be mindful of these things. So the way we work to minimize hallucinations, at least, is we ask the LLM to respond with only factual information available in context. We ask it even to like show me your sources. and then we click on those sources to make sure those sources are true. We like to put some rules around the LMM output. So in addition to our prompts, maybe we want to say like it should be in this format or this length, or don't talk about these topics. Sometimes we also like to kind of play them against each other. So verify one LLM output against another, right? I oftentimes go to ChatGPT to ask it generate something. I'll go to Gemini to ask it to generate something else. And I'll kind of look at both to see which one wins, or maybe it's a hybrid of the both. And then again, citing those sources to increase user trust is important and very helpful to help reduce those biases. And again, demonstrate to people that we're doing due diligence on our end as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matthew. So hopefully that gives you some really good understanding of some of the things to consider as you're working to operationalize AI. And that brings us to managing change. Change management or change leadership is essential with being able to truly transform your organization with AI. And now it might be obvious, but in order to create alignment, you should be prepared to lead change by defining the problem, identifying the solutions, state the change clearly and concisely, and that should include why change, and articulate the desired outcomes for your business. And that's to really connect your why to the outcomes that your business and your business leaders care about most. And so I've given you some examples to get started, particularly applicable to the world of digital asset management, but across all the various organizations that I work with, answering these simple questions, documenting them, gaining alignment, and circulating them with all of the key stakeholders is where it starts, and should start to really affect change in a positive way. Now, next to that, mapping out the responsibilities is also essential. So being able to define who and what are the responsibilities for implementation and adoption of AI in your content workflows. And here's a set of 10 repeatable steps that may apply to your adoption of various AI tools, particularly in the field of content and digital asset management, and a few callouts in a repeatable way. Assess the needs, select your controlled set, and choose the tools that you want to start with. Deploy, test, and iterate. Validate your workflows and quality control. Review and approve. Plan for rolling it out more broadly after you've done those first 6 things. And then train and educate your users. Don't forget about that. Training can just be education and instructing people on the way to do things here forward versus the old way, or to assume people can figure it out on their own. And conduct some periodic audits and provide some ongoing support. So you may want to take this and apply it to your content workflows. We'd love your feedback on what you have done or would change or adjust here as well. And in addition to defining your change plan, set your communication strategy. And we like to use the framework ADKAR from ProSci, which is a certified change management agent. And that is to communicate awareness of the need to change, have the desire to support the change, the knowledge of how to change, the ability to demonstrate support for the change, and reinforcement to make the change stick. And while you might have awareness and desire and knowledge, it's the reinforcement of that ability that will help you really operationalize the adoption of AI in effective ways. And as you're preparing your team for AI adoption within your content workflows, this is some of the things that we've heard from our customers, and it's important to have a human in the loop for these various processes so that you can answer these questions with confidence. And this includes having a brand review. How are you incorporating AI into your brand guidelines? Just like the news about Coca-Cola this week and the example that Matthew shared earlier. Creative workflow. How are you leveraging or checking AI in your creative process? We've talked about that extensively. Metadata or data validation. How are you validating the AI-based metadata with appropriate context and validation? And content ownership. How are you validating content ownership? So think about how you might adapt your various review processes today for the addition of AI with and around some of these categories of questions. Now, After you've had some time of having established some ways of working with AI that provide some likely wins and potentially marginal gains, map out those capabilities in this PDSA table such as this. You can have a clear sense of what to plan for, what to do, what to study, and what to adjust in the world of automating some of your content workflows with AI. And with some of the DAM capabilities that I talked about minutes ago, we've already aggregated some of that homework for you just to get you started and then encourage you to make it your own as you see here. So the plan, do, study, adjust PDSA framework, really helpful tool as you're working through continuous improvement after you're managing and leading change. And don't forget, in the spirit of continuous improvement, don't forget AI is still about the humans that you serve. And that's the balance of tech and touch with this world of AI. Once you've tried some of the use cases with a pilot group of users, we suggest surveying your users to really gauge the helpfulness, the usefulness, and the value of AI in their work. And here's a few simple survey questions that you may ask with a simple 5-point Likert scale. And that can include, did you find the AI features helpful in completing the tasks? Do you find these features worthy of the investment? And do your team members find the AI features useful? And collecting this feedback will be a really useful way to not only continuously improve, but also build some excitement and enthusiasm for AI in your workflows and help you decide what to do and not to do, which is often sometimes just as important as deciding what not to do. All right.
And let me just add really quickly, we have a quote that we like to say about this specifically is pick battles big enough to matter and small enough to win. I think that's a great way to start to like dip your toe in the water in terms of like committing to the right project or opportunity for AI.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know we've had some questions come in through the chat. I've got a summary slide of key takeaways here. This summarizes a lot of what Matthew and I have shared with you here today. I'm not going to read everything in the interest of being able to answer a couple of questions for our audience. I think we can go a few minutes over, but I'm mindful of the time. We've had a really great discussion here today and appreciate all of your engagement. So over to you, Michael, if you want to ask a couple questions.
All right, thank you again for that presentation. Now let's get into some Q&A. So for the first question we have here, how can AI be used to illustrate a children's book while ensuring that the characters remain consistent in appearance across all pages? And that was submitted by Mario.
All right, great. Mario, thank you for the great question. Again, this is where you're not just going to be able to put in a few prompts and get a illustrated children's book out of it. But you can do things to ensure consistency across what you're generating. So for example, many of the image generating AI tools out there can now use images themselves as reference. So what I would recommend if I were to be illustrating a children's book and wanting to ensure, consistency among the look of the characters across the experience, I would first work with AI to develop my characters. And then once I had a character reference that I liked, I would then use that character reference as part of my future prompts. But then I would still expect that I would probably have to open up some design tool to do some final editing or polishing. But you should be able to use prompts to control like the variations in what your character is doing. Maybe your character is wearing a different set of clothes or in a different position or interacting with something else. If you're using that reference art, you should still be able to maintain some level of consistency there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of about that trial and error using the AI capabilities. We have another question coming in here from Jeff. Regarding the DAM capabilities, are you offering these for your own DAM or for commercial DAMs like Biner's DAM?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jeff. What I represented here today was mostly what Acquia has or is adding to its product, but it also is representative of some of the other capabilities across the top vendors and the market. So it's a blend of both. Happy to talk with you more about the capabilities and how to apply them.
Awesome. And then we're getting close on time here, so let's do one more question. How can organizations balance the efficiency gains from AI-driven content automation with the need to maintain a unique human voice and creativity in their own content?
Yeah. Matthew, you want to take that one first? You want me to go first?
Yeah, no, I could take that one first. I mean, again, I think this gets back to not expecting AI to do it all for you. To ensure the human voice, you still need a human involved in the process. And I think that's the kind of best approach that you can have, is making sure that there's still a human available. Because at the very least, you got a human who's inputting the prompts, and you got a human who's reviewing the outputs at the end. So hopefully that's enough human in there to make sure that we are kind of authentic in our voice and our content.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I'll just add that I like the expression "human in the loop" with all things apply AI, and also I view AI as a means to amplify, superpower, augment your abilities, or perhaps fill some voids where you can apply yourselves to more strategic and creative work, and perhaps AI can take the role of some of the more less desirable tasks from you.
Right.